Reuben Lawson, a Roanoke lawyer, but more importantly, a forgotten civil rights titan. Reuben Lawson's career sprung into action after the United States Supreme Court announced their decision in Brown versus Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education established that racial segregation in this country in our public schools was unconstitutional. The attorneys for the students in the Brown versus Board of Education were Oliver Hill, who had been born in Roanoke and practiced for a short while in Roanoke before he moved to Richmond, and Thurgood Marshall, a legal titan also who would later become a Supreme Court justice. The court decision paved the way for required integration, but it took years and years for this decision to become reality. I think there are two reasons that Reuben Lawson's incredible career has been somewhat overlooked. One is he was practicing law at the same time that Oliver Hill was, and Oliver Hill, just a civil rights incredible legend who was from Roanoke, and at the beginning of his practice, practiced law here in Roanoke. But one of the differences between Oliver Hill and Reuben Lawson is that Reuben Lawson spent his entire career in Roanoke practicing law. He was here the whole time bringing these unbelievably important cases to integrate our school. And secondly, Reuben Lawson died young. He died at the age of 43 in 1963. And I think those two factors, unfortunately, are why he has been overlooked. But now we can bring him back. As you can see from this card, this Christmas card, Reuben was a great family man. We are blessed in this endeavor because one of Roanoke's leading citizens, the Reverend Burton, actually knew well Reuben E. Lawson.
I was there for 50 years. I had never heard of Roanoke, but I had heard of Roanoke, but had never been here. So I came here to be pastor of Sweet Union, and I stayed there for 50 years, and I've been retired for 12.
That's fantastic.
So I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
I was in the United States Army in World War II, at the end of World War II, and I went to Japan with the occupational forces. And so I'm a World War II veteran. Not many of us are left. In July of this year, I celebrated my 95th birthday. A lot of people came out, and this was a great celebration. And right now I'm planning for my 100th. I knew Reuben Lawson because I was vice president of the Roanoke chapter of the NAACP, and he was the NAACP lawyer back in the 60s. That was a long time ago. Most of the time and he was the legal advisor, and we had the executive board of the NAACP back at that time to actually meet at Reuben Lawson's office, which, by the way, was in the Lawson building that he had built for himself. I can remember vaguely that what happened, he talked to the executive board of the NAACP, and he also petitioned the Roanoke City School Board that we needed to integrate, but it took some years even after that decision was made by the Supreme Court to actually bring about into the first integration in the Roanoke City schools at the little school on Melrose Avenue, and that started it. Since that time, a lot of things have happened. In my early days, as I remember relating to him, he was weakening even at that time. And when we would have meetings, he had one thing in his office that I have not heard of in a lawyer's office, and that was he had a cot, and he would meet with us, but he would have to lay down for a while and then come back and meet with us. But even in his weakening days, he met with us and carried on his work. None other than he was a quiet and soft-spoken person and easy to relate to, and he seemed really enthused about what he was trying to do in that day and time. He was not a great fan of demonstrations, and he thought that the best way to achieve what we were trying to achieve would be through the courts, and he led us through in that direction.
Reuben Lawson actually built his own building where his law practice was located, and the building still stands in Roanoke, Virginia, the Lawson Building. And if you think about it, what an accomplishment for an African American lawyer during those times to have made that statement. Reuben Lawson was active in the community. He wasn't just an incredible civil rights lawyer. He was a member of the Shriners, and as you can note from this picture, sadly, the organizations were segregated in that date and time. When he built his building where his law practice was housed, it was noted with great fanfare in the community. Besides the civil rights cases that Reuben Lawson brought, he also made change on the ground level in the community. When there was a pro football exhibition game to be held at Victory Stadium in Roanoke, Virginia, Reuben Lawson made sure that the stands were integrated.
I should like to submit to you, gentlemen, that the Steelers and the Colts both have Negro stars. They're not just ordinary players, they're all-American stars on their team. I am personally acquainted with some of them, and I know that they would not appreciate playing before a segregated audience. I merely refer you to the fact that we have always had, since 1950, since we built the new city library, it has been desegregated, and we have occasion to support the stand which I'm asking you gentlemen to take. I realize that each of you, when you took your oath, you promised to uphold the Constitution of Virginia, but you also promised, gentlemen, to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. That is why I'm here today, asking you, which is superior, your oath to the state of Virginia or your oath to the Constitution of the United States. And I believe that as an attorney, that my position is that my oath to the Constitution of the United States is superior to any other oath which I've ever taken or which.
We are blessed today that there's actually some video footage of when Reuben Lawson filed one of his first desegregation lawsuits.
We'd like to know when you expect the suit to be heard. Well, I really don't know. What date have you requested? We're going to have a temporary hearing on the 8th of September.
Judge Thompson indicated he would hear it at that time?
Yes, he did. Let me ask you another question. How about the suit against Grayson County and Galax? Will that be filed in Abington or here? When it's filed, it'll be filed in Abington. Can you give us a date on that? Wouldn't like to.
Will Judge Thompson hear that also?
He will.
Mr. Lawson, do you hope for a ruling on the 8th?
Well, I can't predict what the judge will do.
Do you hope for one?
I'd like for him to make a ruling, yes.
If the ruling is handed down on the 8th, will the Negro plaintiffs enter the Floyd schools on the 9th?
That depends on his ruling. If it is an immediate ruling as you are seeking for integration. I would assume so, yes.
Not only did Reuben Lawson file lawsuits in Roanoke City and Roanoke County, but he filed lawsuits all over Southwest Virginia to make sure that our schools were integrated. He started in Floyd County, and he filed a lawsuit there to make sure that the schools in Floyd County were integrated. Before the lawsuit, African American students were sent outside of the county to receive their education. And the federal judge, after Reuben Lawson filed his case, required that black students be admitted to the high school in Floyd County. And once again, we're blessed with having some of this old video footage. Here we have the two titans walking into court together, Reuben Lawson and Oliver Hill. We've also located some of the original papers of Reuben Lawson. We traveled to the University of Virginia Law School, and some of the original correspondence and orders from the court on these integration cases still exist. It looks like they use typewriters, but the original papers still exist today. Reuben Lawson filed the case to integrate the school in Pulaski, Virginia. Before the lawsuit, black students were sent to Christiansburg Industrial Institute, which was over 25 miles away. But after the lawsuit was filed, the federal judge agreed that they had to be admitted to the schools in Pulaski County, and that's what happened as a result of the lawsuit. In 1960, Reuben Lawson filed a lawsuit to integrate the schools in Grayson County, Virginia. Prior to the lawsuit being filed, African American students were sent to Wytheville to receive their education. But as a result of the lawsuit, Grayson County students were required to be educated in an integrated fashion in the same county. The federal judge in the Grayson County case said that African American students need to have the same opportunities and rights as Caucasian students. Reuben Lawson filed a lawsuit to integrate the schools in Lynchburg, Virginia. One of the things that happened in localities as a result of a thing called massive resistance, which was instituted by Senator Harry Byrd, a Virginia United States senator, which the goal of massive resistance was to oppose integration, was to oppose school integration. And one of the ways the state did that was to set up a thing called a pupil placement board. And the bottom line on a pupil placement board is it made it very difficult for African American students to be admitted into the white classes with their white students. In Lynchburg, the white children were assigned to E.C. Glass High School, and the black children were assigned to another school, Dunbar High School. And if an African American parent disagreed, they would have to appeal to that pupil placement board. And the pupil placement board made it virtually impossible for that African American child to go to E.C. Glass. After Reuben Lawson brought the lawsuit over the Lynchburg schools, the federal judge ordered that the schools be integrated. There still was resistance in Lynchburg and a number of localities, even after court orders. And one of the things that Lynchburg said was they were only able to integrate one grade at a time, and it would take a long time for them to integrate all of the classes. The federal judge ordered that Lynchburg come up with a desegregation plan. One of the things that Lynchburg and a number of localities did, they wanted to drag their feet. Ultimately, though, as a result of Reuben Lawson's effort, they were not able to drag their feet, and the schools in Lynchburg, Virginia were fully integrated. Again, we're blessed to have footage from Reuben Lawson when he was in action. And here we can see when he's talking to the press about future lawsuits over school integration.
You say counties. Do you have plans to ask transfer to white schools in any other counties?
At this point, I'm not at liberty to say, but it is my thinking that there may materialize in the very near future suits in other counties in southwest Virginia as well.
Closer to home, Reuben Lawson brought a lawsuit to integrate the Roanoke County schools. At the time, there were 14,000 students in the Roanoke County schools. 1,000 of them were African American children, and they were attended schools separate from the white children. Roanoke County, similar to other school districts, had this pupil placement program that made it very difficult for African American students to go to school with white students, made it very hard for them to transfer. Reuben Lawson's lawsuit made it so that was held to be unconstitutional, not allowed, and the schools in Roanoke County were integrated as a result of his efforts. Similar to many other localities, Roanoke City schools in the late 50s and early 1960s were segregated. White students going to certain schools, black students going to certain schools. Reuben Lawson filed a lawsuit to change that. Roanoke City had a program for the Pupil Placement Board that's similar to other locations, which made it virtually impossible for a black student to transfer to another school. It had been set up by the state officials under massive resistance to keep the schools segregated, to fight Brown versus Board of Education, and Reuben Lawson stood up to that. Reuben Lawson's lawsuit in Roanoke challenged the Pupil Placement Board's decision, said it was unconstitutional to have this kind of impediment for a student to transfer. Reuben Lawson had to appeal the decision in Roanoke City to the Court of Appeals, what's called the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they agreed with him and found that Roanoke City's practices as relates to African American students being able to transfer were unconstitutional. Reuben E. Lawson is the forgotten civil rights titan. It may be because he lived in the shadow of the incredible legend, Oliver Hill, but regardless, he was a civil rights titan. He filed the lawsuits that integrated the schools all over Southwest Virginia, in Floyd County, in Grayson County, in Lynchburg City, in Roanoke County, Roanoke City, in Pulaski County. He was persistent, he was dogged, he made sure that the laws in this country, the civil rights laws in this country, were followed. The Paul Federal Building in Roanoke should be renamed. We are suggesting that it be named after this civil rights titan, that it now be called the Reuben E. Lawson Federal Building. So what can you do? What can you do to help in this effort? I would ask you to write letters in support to our federal officials to encourage them to pass legislation to change the name of the Paul Federal Building to the Reuben E. Lawson Federal Building. Write to Senators Tim Kaine, Senator Mark Warner, Congressman Ben Cline, and Congressman Morgan Griffith. Let them know that you want to see the name changed about our federal building to this civil rights legend and titan, Reuben E. Lawson.